Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be taking a look at the Transformers Legacy United Prime Universe Voyager class Starseeker Thundertron. Eliminating this figure in the comment section down below. Is it a pickup or a pass? Now let's take a look at the figure's packaging. So here we have the packaging. Starting at the very front, we have Transformers on the side. We have the Legacy United logo at the bottom of the box with Prime Universe Thundertron in white text with a white Starseeker symbol, and a really cool artwork shot of Thundertron in his lion or tiger mode, and an open way displaying the figure in the packaging. And if we do look at the top of the box, we have another Legacy United logo as well. And if we do look at the side of the box, we have two really cool artwork shots of Thundertron in his robot mode. One more of a close-up of his head and chest, and one more of a wide shot with his really cool sword accessory weapon. And if we do look at the back of the box, the figure transforms in 24 steps. There's a product shot of him and his robot and his alt mode, and of course the 40th anniversary Transformers logo there as well. And if we do look at the final side of the packaging, this is actually just half of the Legacy United artwork. So if you do get another Voyager from this Legacy United line, such as Animated Optimus Prime, you can put both boxes together and complete the artwork. And that is pretty much it for the packaging. So let's now get into the review. So here we have Thundertron in his robot mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very top with the head sculpt. To do like the bright white for the entire forehead section, and the dark blue for the side sections on the head and the crest on the front of the face, with a really nice lighter blue for the eyes and the gunmetal gray for the face, with a really nice bright silver for the beard. And I think they did a really good job sculpting in that beard with all the different sections of hair and strands that actually make up the beard. And if you actually do look at the face close enough, there's some really cool damaging and scarring underneath one of the eyes, and there is actually some more kind of weathering and cracking all over the figure, which I'll point out those specific sections and details once I get to them in just a sec. But now taking a look at the shoulders, I do like how big, bulky, and beefy they are. Really just shows how strong and intimidating Thundertron really is. Now taking a look at the arms, I do like the dark blue color for really the base color of the figure, but even for these forearm guards, I do like how big and bulky and beefy they are. Just like the shoulders really shows how strong he is. And of course he does have some really cool Wolverine type claws. Now that being said, originally Thundertron with the original Transformers Prime Thundertron figure that I'll bring out in just a sec for a comparison, originally the claws were actually displayed and attached at the shoulder, so they did kind of modernize it and change it a tad bit, which typically, you know, with the past Prime Universe characters, a lot of people have not been the biggest fan of that kind of modernization of the Prime figures, like Bulkhead and RC. People really didn't like that. Personally with me, I'm not bothered by this. That being said, I do have my preference, and my preference is the older look with the claws on the shoulders. That's just my opinion anyway. I'm perfectly fine with this look, but I will always prefer the older one. But I do like the Wolverine type claws near the hands with a really nice gold and white look. And of course, same for the other side. Now looking at the chest, probably one of my favorite design aspects of Thundertron ever. I love how he has this huge saber-toothed tiger head on his chest. And I think it looks very cool and ferocious with his really nice kind of mechanical ears sculpted in. And I just like these side panels with the really nice blue striping. There's actually some gold for the snout and nose. And I just like the brighter blue for the eyes. And there's actually some silver for his teeth, looking very sharp and scary. And in case you're wondering, you actually can have his mouth a little bit open in this mode. You can actually open it more in the alternate mode. Mostly the reason why is this entire panel here is kind of under his jaw, and it's keeping it from opening the full range, which I'm perfectly fine with. It's slightly limited because if you didn't know, with the original Thundertron from Transformers Prime, his mouth, his alternate, animal mouth was completely stuck. It could not open or close in the robot or the alt mode. So it's a bit of added playability and articulation with this figure, which I'm actually really glad they did. Adds a lot of personality and just makes him that much more scary. But now taking a look at the lower portion of the figure, I do want to talk about these kind of skirt pieces. There's actually even more damage and kind of scarring on here. I just like this huge chunk that's actually been taken out of the side right there. And I love that dark blue and gold look. And there's actually even more damaging on this other piece right here. And there is actually some on the thighs. That being said, I actually kind of prefer the details and the damages damages on these pieces over these, because there's really not much depth to them. They really just look like they were barely sculpted in. It would have been nice if they were a bit deeper, because they would look a bit more believable and noticeable, because they didn't paint them. They're really just kind of done in gray plastic, and if you have the figure far away, you can barely even notice them. But with these skirt pieces, you can actually see actual chunks taken out, so it's a lot more noticeable. So I think for the damages at his thighs, I think it would have been nice if they could have added a few pin-ups and also made those cuts a bit deeper so you could see them a bit more, because they are a bit lost with the figure at times. And now taking a look at the further legs, I do like that dark blue and gold look with these really cool kind of spikes at the knees, and I've always really liked his feet design. They're very animal-like in nature and very scary as well. But just moving his arms back down and taking a look at that side profile there, overall very compact. That being said, there is a few of the skirt panels and pieces that do kind of limit and kind of restrict his articulation. I'm saying that now because I don't want you guys to think, oh, there's nothing blocking his articulation. He does not have a backpack, that's true. He has very few, actual panels on his back and his legs and arms. That's a good thing, but there are a few panels here and there that I will have to discuss during the articulation. But taking a look at the actual back of the figure, very impressed. No hollow gaps. There is a bit in the back of the legs, which truth be told, I'm not that surprised in seeing, because that's exactly how the original was, so no surprise there. One thing that I think is a major improvement on this version or release of Thundertron over the original is the tail. This could have just been my copy. Let me know if yours was any different, but the original Transformers Prime Thundertron actually had a rubber tail, which I'm perfectly fine with some rubber bits here and there, depending on the area, of course. I don't want the whole figure to be rubber, but the tail was rubber, which again was fun and all, but unfortunately on my copy, it can never hold its shape. It was very droopy. I think it would have been a good idea to put like a wire or like a tube in there to actually be able to hold its shape and actually stand up, because it would always droop down. So of the two, I definitely prefer this look because it actually holds its shape and I think it looks really good. I do like the color of gray they chose, kind of an iron metal color. They're very mechanical in nature, and I do like all these separate little panels and gears and hinges. And if you do look at this entire back kind of cape skirt piece, we actually do have the Star Seeker symbol there, in case you're wondering what that was. I just like the black color they chose. I'm pretty sure on the original it was kind of a greener blue. I probably prefer the black, and there's actually even more scarring and damaging at this entire back section there. But that is it for the details. So now for articulation, definitely I have to say already a massive improvement over the original. But starting at that head sculpt, of course, the head can look up and down. It can tilt side to side, look left and right. The shoulder pads or panels can move up and down and forward and back, mostly due to transformation. And for the posability, I would highly advise to move the panel out of the way. You just don't want it kind of messing you up. But the shoulder can move out and in, forward and back. There is also a very tight bicep rotation and an elbow bend past 90. So as for his hand, I was actually very surprised to see this. When they first revealed this figure, I was really expecting him to not have a wrist rotation, because of course these claws are pretty much completely in the way, but he does have a wrist rotation. But do keep this in mind when you're using the wrist rotation. So these claws here, I actually initially thought were a part of the hands. Like if you could move the hand, the claw would move too, but the claw is actually a part of the forearm, so it is a separate piece. So when you get this figure, do not expect this claw to move too, because it will not. It will stay put. So he does have a wrist rotation. He actually does have an entire mushroom pick inside of his forearm right there. It's very hard to access and use because just, the confined space there. It's really hard to move and use, but you can see me moving the hand right now. It's a very tight swivel as well. So not a lot of space, and a tight joint is not a good combination. So that is another reason why I would prefer the claws at the shoulders, because then you could actually get the full range of motion with that wrist that you're really supposed to. As for his waist, this is where the articulation can be a bit challenging, so I would highly advise to move the arms out of the way pretty much as you can like that. And also, of course, for these side skirt pieces, also do move these out of the way as well. And as for this entire back panel here, technically you don't really, this isn't really like a part of, using the waist, but I really advise to. Really, the only reason why this panel has a hinge is because for transformation, but I would still advise to move it out of the way. So he does have a wrist rotation, or a waist rotation, excuse me, but it's very limited. It can really only slightly move back and forth like that. So not the best. And if you're wondering about the tail, if you want to use the waist rotation, you do not have to move the tail like these panels or the back one. You don't have to do that because the tail is actually attached to the waist, so you really don't need to at all. But it's better than nothing, because if you didn't know, actually the original Thundertron did not have a waist rotation at all. So I guess you can say in this situation something is better than nothing. But if you're wondering about these little side skirt panels, they're on a ball joint, so they can just kind of rotate out and in, and of course forward and back, and just rotate the full 360. And the same for the other one. I'm actually going to keep these out because I do want to cover the leg articulation. So the leg can kick forward, it can also kick back, and if you do again want to kind of move that panel out as far as you can get a pretty good range of motion kicking back. You can also kick them out to the side to a pretty good degree, again just kind of move some pieces to accommodate that. He also does have a rotation at the top of the leg and at the top of the knee. He also does have a knee bend to a very good degree. And as for his feet, let me just quickly straighten up the figure, then we can cover the feet articulation. So the feet are actually a bit of an interesting case, because if you don't know, you can actually remove one of them to give him his classic pirate peg leg, which I'll discuss that and cover that once we get to the accessories. I'm just saying that now because the articulation for each foot is different. Since this one is removable and unfortunately does not have an ankle pivot, this one does, because you cannot remove it. So it can pivot, of course, forward and back, and it can actually also pivot down and up. This one can only rotate because it's on a pretty much mushroom peg, so it can rotate, that way, or the full 360, and it can slightly move up and down. So that's pretty much the best you got. No pivot, unfortunately. So that is one kind of downside to that feature, because sometimes you might be able to tell the figure might be kind of leaning or uneven. So honestly, I'm not sure if I would be willing to give up that feature for an ankle pivot or not. That is one downside that was actually also on the original. He had that same, peg leg feature, and he was also quite hard to stand. So I'm not sure really where I stand with that, but that is it for articulation. It's actually quite a bit. It's pretty posable for the most part. Really, the main area that's a bit hard to do is the waist. There's a bit of work to be done there. But as for accessories, he does come with one really cool sword, kind of a pirate sword. Definitely has that kind of curved shape to it. And I just like these really cool kind of scratches and damages in it. I definitely think it could use some paints, like maybe some of that silver or gold, because if you look at this Thundertron figure here, really well painted, very well detailed, and this sword is rather boring. So I think some extra paint apps would have been nice, especially because this is a Voyager and he only comes with one accessory, unless you count his foot attachment, but you can plug this in either hand, like so. And I think that looks pretty cool. And as for sort of an upgrading feature, you can actually remove his foot, as I previously mentioned, and you can give him his classic pirate peg leg, which, as you can see here, it does make him stand a bit lopsided, which is unfortunate. But if you want to make the sword look a bit more interesting, if you do take the sword out of his hands, let me just kind of rest him there. You can attach the foot onto the sword with this tab and slot, like so. And then you just get these two little spike pieces and hinge these back, and then you can put that back into his hands, and there you have your sort of upgraded sword if you want to make it look a bit different. I think, truth be told, I don't really like this version of the sword. I do like the peg leg, so probably how I'm going to display it is have him have his peg leg, but probably just put the foot attachment or the foot piece like in a bag or off to the side. But that is pretty much it for accessories. Starting off our comparisons here, we have the Transformers Prime Voyager class Thundertron compared next to the Transformers Legacy United Voyager class Thundertron. And let me know in the comments of the two Thundertron figures, which one do you like more or prefer? And I actually do have a preference of the two Thundertron figures. I'll just say it right now, right away. I think the Legacy United one is better overall. That being said, there are pros and cons to each of them, so let's get into it. On the new release, my preference, I actually do like the darker blue rather than the lighter blue. I have to say on the older release though, I think the accessory is better. But interesting enough, the older accessory had kind of a spring-loaded feature. If you own that figure, you know what I'm talking about. And never really worked. I actually do own two versions or two copies of this figure, and they both never really worked that well. It also had a light feature, which I was never really sure why a sword would have a light feature. And also the light was not very bright. It was very dim and it was red. I really didn't understand the color of the light, so that didn't really make sense to me. But I think of the accessories, the older release is much more interesting. The newer one definitely needs more paint. I do like the shape. It definitely reminds me immediately of a pirate sword. It's just rather bland compared to the figure because the figure is so well detailed and painted and sculpted. And also this is a Voyager class figure. Really for both of them, I think they should come with more accessories. And honestly, I was more expecting of that of the new release because of course, come on, this figure came out like, 10 plus years ago. It came out when Transformers Prime was still airing, and it's been many years since then. So I definitely think they could have included like a gun, maybe an extra sword, something more to include with this new Thundertron figure. One massive improvement on this new release is the quality control, the QC. I was not gonna lie, I was pretty worried that when they were talking about a new Thundertron figure, I was really worried, was it gonna be like this old Thundertron figure all over again with all the bad QC? If you have that figure again, you know what I'm talking about. A few examples are, there is a lot of stress marks in the figure. I actually just got this second copy of Thundertron here like maybe 1 or 2 months ago, and there's already quite a few stress marks. Another problem is these two chest panels would pop off constantly, and I'm happy to say on this new release they're actually pinned on his chest, so they are not going anywhere. And one last thing I do prefer on this older Thundertron is the claws on the shoulders. I did briefly mention this earlier when I was taking a look at the details of this Thundertron figure. It's a bit of an interesting case and kind of hard to describe. I prefer the look of the claws on the shoulder, and I am fine with the Wolverine type claws on the new release. I just think if they had put the claws on the shoulders like the older release, you could have gotten the full posability with those wrists, because the claws are right where the hands are, and he does have a wrist rotation. It's just very hard to access and use due to those claws being there. But those are just the few pros and cons I have. If I had like a whole hour, I could probably go on and on about these figures, but those are just a few of the pros and cons I have of each of them. Again, let me know in the comments of the two Thundertron figures, which one do you prefer? And now for one final comparison here, we have the Voyager class Thundertron compared alongside the other Voyager from Legacy United Wave 1, that being the animated Optimus Prime, and his separate review is coming very soon on the channel. And I think they overall look pretty cool side by side, and let me know in the comments of the two Voyager class figures from Wave 1, which one do you like more? So now for transformation, what you want to do is grab the entire saber-toothed tiger head and disconnect it from the chest and just hinge this entire section up like that. And the entire head is on multiple hinges and panels, so you're just going to fully extend this like that and just hinge that up and out of the way. And make sure these shoulder pads are also pushed back so you have enough clearance to actually transform the arms and hands. So what you want to do is grab the shoulder, rotate this entire section around, and then you can grab the bicep and rotate this section as well. You're going to make sure the slot is facing in. Do the exact same process with the other shoulder, just rotate this entire section up. You can then grab the bicep and rotate the section in, and of course this time there is a tab, and that will tab into the corresponding slot. So angle these sections in like so and tab those together like that. And then what you want to do is there is two slots and these two little kind of spikes or slots, and all of that will just align up and tab into place. It can be a bit hard to align, but they should just kind of soft click into place like that. You can then grab this entire sort of neck panel of the beast, and that will just align up and tab into place. There is 2 posts and 2 ports, and that will just lock them into place nice and securely. And there we go. And sometimes that panel comes in tabs, so if I come back around, I might have to reattach that back into place. But now we're going to move to the shoulder. You're actually going to open up the entire shoulder panel and then fully hinge the entire front leg out. And then you can swivel at the top of the front leg, and then you can close that shoulder panel back down. There is a post and a port, and that will just plug right into place nice and securely. It can be a bit hard to get there. There we go. And as I said, sometimes that can come untabbed, but you just tab that back into place. And of course, repeat the same process with the other side. So open up that shoulder panel, fully extend the front leg out, then rotate at that bicep or that swivel there. And then you can just plug that into place, close that shoulder pad up, and then you can just straighten out the claws. And as for this entire front head section, this is a bit customizable. Same with the robot mode. You can actually have these panels angled back to sort of cover more of the side, or you can actually have them hinged forward to have more of a complete head. This is my preference, but of course, your toy, you can do whatever you want. You can then grab this entire back panel section here and hinge this entire section forward like that, and this tab will pretty much tab into the back of the head like so. And now we can focus on the legs. Just get the tail kind of hinged that up and get out of the way. Same with these little hip skirt pieces. Just move those out of the way like that. And this process can be a bit messy, so I'm going to go slow so you can understand it. But you're just going to rotate at the top of the leg, not the knee. There is, as you can see, a mushroom peg at the knee. You're not going to do that. So rotate at that thigh piece. Same with the other one. And as you can see, it pretty much takes the rest of the leg too, but you're not going to want to do that. You're going to want to then rotate the knee joints back to the front. It's the same with the other one. So pretty much what we just did is had the thigh pieces folded, of course, to the back or the other side of the figure, but you're going to want to keep these pieces facing towards the front. There's also a hinge pretty much below the knee, and you're going to bend there too. Same with the other one. There's a hinge there too. And then you can kind of create that sort of chicken leg design or kind of folded up design like that. You just gotta work at it, and you can sort of create that folded up look like that. And then go to the other side and then do the same thing. Just kind of hinge this forward and sort of scrunch all of this up. And then you can bring these little hip skirt panels back, really position them however you want, and then drop the tail down. And then let me just quickly straighten up the figure. But that is pretty much it for transformation. Let's now take a look at the details. So here we have Thundertron in his saber-toothed tiger alt mode. Let's take a look at the details, starting at the very front with that really cool ferocious saber-toothed tiger head. I just like the bright white for the base color of the head with the really nice dark blue details, like these kind of striping details on the side panels and the eyebrows, with the really cool mechanical ears sculpted in. And I do like that kind of goldish bronze color for the snout or the nose, and then nice silver for the sharp teeth on the inside of the mouth. And it's like the lighter shade of blue for the eyes. And of course, if we do look at the front paws, pretty much the same mix of colors for Thundertron here as well, with that same kind of goldish bronze, the darker gray, and the white for the actual leg itself, which I think looks pretty cool. We do have these big beefy shoulder pads that kind of act as the shoulders for this mode, which I think looks pretty cool with that same kind of gold and dark blue. And taking a look at that midsection there, I actually do like all the overlapping panels and pieces showing how kind of ancient and old Thundertron really is. You can actually still see some of that damaging and cracking from the robot mode in this mode, which I'm actually really happy about. And if we do look at the hind legs, I'm actually really glad how different in design and appearance they are from the front ones, because typically Hasbro could easily just repeat that same mold, that same design from the front ones and just repeat it for the back, but they actually went for a different approach for the appearance, which I'm glad. I actually do like the really cool kind of crunched up angled design for the back legs, and the foot design is slightly different, mostly done in that darker gray color, really no white this time with that same kind of goldish bronze color. And we do have the really cool kind of hip skirt panel pieces, which those are kind of customizable in nature, you know, or they're on a ball joint, so you can have them really angled up, really angled down, a bit more in the middle, how I like to do it, so it's completely up to you. And we do have the tail, again, a really nice attention to detail with this tail. I do like all the individual little kind of panels and sections looking very mechanical, and again, I love that gray color they chose. Looks very metal, very iron, very mechanical, so overall detail wise, I'm actually very thoroughly impressed with this alt mode. So as for articulation, this is kind of one of those cases where the posability from the robot mode really doesn't change much for his alt mode. I'd really say the only added areas of articulation are pretty much mostly where this front section is. So of course the mouth can open slightly a bit more than it could in the robot mode. As I mentioned previously, when he was in his robot mode, when I was taking a look at the articulation, the entire panel under here was actually sitting closer to the head, so it was actually preventing it from the mouth from opening more. But now that that panel is actually sitting further down, you can have that full range of motion, which is pretty cool. So that's an added piece of articulation. Another area is the front legs. All of this is brand new, so there is actually a hinge at pretty much the start or the base of the legs. This can kick forward and back. And there is also a hinge at the paw. This can also, of course, hinge up and down. As for the legs, overall, pretty much the same posability and articulation, all the same joints from the robot mode, because if you don't know, these hind legs are actually the robot mode legs, just kind of folded up and scrunched up to form them. So all the same hinges and posability. Really the only added area or section is actually this kind of new knee bend, because this entire section here was actually kind of locked and tabbed into place, and this is actually not the knee bend from the robot mode. This is actually the knee bend joint from before, but you actually kind of break the leg or transform it to sort of form a new hinge. So this is a bit of a new area right here, but everything else is pretty much the exact same posability. So as for accessory storage, it's okay. I do cut a bit of slack, because, you know, he's a very oddly shaped, you know, kind of different alt mode, you know, much different than like a car or a plane. Those are pretty, you know, easy alt modes to store weapons and swords, so I can kind of cut some slack. There's really not that many places to put, you know, a massive sword and it actually look good, but basically what you can do is get this tab here, and there is a slot pretty much on the animal back, and that can just tab into place like so, and I think it looks just okay. I probably most of the time, if I do display Thundertron in this mode, I will probably leave it off to the side, but I'm still glad it's an option for you to use. But as for some alt mode comparisons, let me just kind of change his position there, but here he is with his original version of the character, that being the Transformers Prime Thundertron and his Saber-tooth Tiger alt mode, and I think they look pretty cool. Still an easy clear winner for me. I definitely think the new version did it a lot better. I just think it's more of a solid piece, because every time I pick up this old version, appearance wise it is cool, it just doesn't seem very solid. It seems very light, very loose. A lot of the panels and pieces move, even like the major sections like the hind legs. These are actually pretty locked into place. They only move if you want them to move, but a lot of the joints and a lot of the panels don't really stay their shape or their position, which is a bit of frustrating and annoying. So definitely my preferred of the alt modes. But now for one final comparison, here he is with a deluxe from Legacy United Wave 1, that being Chase, and his separate review is already up on the channel, so make sure you go check it out after this one. But that is pretty much it for comparisons and this alt mode. Let's now get down to the final thoughts. Now for my final thoughts on the Transformers Legacy United Prime Universe Voyager class Starseeker Thundertron. Now if you don't know much about this character, Thundertron is the leader of a group of space pirates called the Starseekers, and was supposed to make an appearance in the Transformers Prime series but was cut last minute. Starting in the remote, Thundertron's remote design has always been one of my favorites. I love the huge saber-toothed tiger head on the chest and in a nice white and dark blue. I also like the sharp Wolverine type claws on the hands done in nice gold paint apps. I like the amazing weathered and damaged details Hasbro gave to this figure, showing the character or this figure has been through some battles. As for features and accessories, the figure includes one sword, which the shape of it definitely reminds me of a pirate sword. You can also remove one of the feet to give him his classic pirate peg leg. Articulation is overall pretty good, just the cape or skirt pieces around Thundertron's waist limit the waist and leg articulation quite a bit. Transformation is simple and fun to transform the figure back and forth. Now for Thundertron's alt mode, Thundertron transforms into a saber-toothed tiger and looks really ferocious with his sharp gold claws and huge teeth. I also love the big white mane around the tiger's head, and in case you're wondering about accessory storage, the sword can be attached or stored on the tiger's back. What do you think of this figure? Let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this review, and I will see you next time.